we're here at the Pimax booth. We're going to be trying out the 5K Plus. We're looking at the new prototype that they have for the controller. We're going to test out some games with the HTC Vive controller, both Beat Saber and Skyrim. And then we're going to check out the Leap Motion tracker that attaches to the bottom of the Pimax and lets you track your hands in VR. So you don't even have to have controllers, like your hands are the controllers. We're going to try both the 5K Plus and the Pimax 8K. Now both of these headsets use 1440p as the base resolution, but the displays on the inside is quite a bit different. The Pimax 8K has two 4K panels, one for each eye, and the 1440p signal is upscaled. This helps reduce the screen door effect, but we'll have to see how it is with the overall clarity, whether I like the 5K Plus better or not. The 5K Plus just uses a 1440p signal and a 1440p LCD display. And then there's also the Pimax 5K Business Edition, which has an OLED panel, the same exact resolution though. So let's go ahead and check out the booth and see what we think. Okay, so we've got the 5K Plus here. So this has the Leap Motion tracker built into the bottom of the Pimax 5K Plus, and this allows the hand tracking to be in real time so that you can interact with objects with a 3D object. And you can put a variety of mounts to this to track like a controllers or an actual physical hands. Gonna get some hands-on testing with it. This is so responsive. It feels about like maybe a 50 millisecond delay. That's what I would estimate after I keep trying it out. That's really quick. These lenses inside of this sucker are just enormous. They're huge. They provide for such a wider field of view. Like a normal Oculus one is maybe it's a circle right here, but you have all of this additional side room for peripheral vision, so it's so much more immersive. It's obviously a massive increase in resolution compared to the Rift and the Vive. Even the Vive Pro, this is a dramatic improvement. So this is the Pimax prototype controller. I'm gonna go ahead and try it out. There's only actually one for the right hand, but this should be available in Q3 2019. You know, Pimax tends to have a lot of delays, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little bit later delivery than Q3 2019, but I hope their delays are done. Rumor has it that the 5K Plus is actually the best model to get, even better than the 8K currently. So they've done a lot of iterations of improvement, everything from the lenses to how the display interacts with the lens for the IPD, your interpupillary distance between your eyes, to make the picture as clear as possible. This business edition model features an OLED display, and the standard 5K Plus features an LCD display. Now this is still a very light setup. I would argue probably lighter than an Oculus Rift if I'm just to guess off the cuff. And that's partially because you're just dealing with straps on the back half, so you're kind of a little bit front heavy when using a 5K Plus. And the other major issue when using VR with a Oculus versus like a Pimax is that the Pimax is going to take a much more powerful computer to be able to power it. You're talking at least a GTX 1070, maybe a GTX 1080. Like probably a 1080 is like the recommended specs if you want to do most VR, but some games probably will work with a 1070. And ideally, if you can use like an RTX 2080 or 2080 Ti, you're gonna have the best performance, especially in graphically demanding titles like Skyrim and other games. If you want to hit like 80 FPS consistently as a minimum, you're really gonna need that high-end system to be able to hit that in the complicated games. This is so much dramatically clearer than an Oculus. I gotta say, there is a little bit of distortion on the far fringes, edges of the display, like on like the 90%, but overall the center of the display is super clear. It's definitely at least a 1080p minimum like experience. I mean, it's obviously a 1440p display, but you're also spreading those pixels out over a lot wider field of view, more than just a normal monitor. This controller just feels so much better. It feels like an Oculus Rift where an HTC Vive feels like a brick in your hand. It's almost like the HTC Vive's like a weapon you're supposed to club someone with, where this feels like your natural resting position of your hand, the way the fingers grip around it. Now it still needs some more tweaking, like this big rim around it. If you had two of these, I could see this rim clashing and hitting right here. So that's something they need to work on, maybe scooting the rim over to the right a little bit, or reducing this aspect of the rim just a little bit. But the big thing about these controllers is that they're going to be compatible. See all these little sensors right here? These sensors are going to allow for an under-mounted sensor rack right here underneath the Pimax, and this will do full tracking like right in front of you without having to have external sensors, so it'll be much more travel friendly and a much simpler setup experience without a doubt. Currently the way this works is there's a tightening grip around this, so this prevents your hand from flying off. It like really locks in pretty tight, and it's like really stable and secure there. That's good. You've got this LED light up strip right around the front. I imagine that's going to be improved, and also these little sensors I'm sure will have little glass pieces over them, so it'll look a lot classier when it's actually put into production. Some areas of improvement would be this button placement. I would personally like, it doesn't feel as natural going like this to be able to hit, so someone with big hands, it's kind of hard to actually reach down and hit those, so I would love a little bit different button placement. And I would also like this button to be raised up as well. It's harder to press. I am feeling vibrations in here. The haptic feedback is working. I actually am a fan of not having too strong of haptic feedback, but this is quite a bit weaker haptic feedback than you would expect in like the Oculus, for example, which is a lot stronger. So there you go, that's the controller. That was awesome. Main disadvantages of this currently is that the Vive controllers just aren't as good as like an Oculus controller. We're not really reviewing the Vive controllers though, we're taking a look at the Pimax, and the Pimax was fantastic. I do think that the refresh rate was not quite as high, like I think it felt more like 80 something FPS, even though we're playing Beat Saber, it should be able to run at, you know, the maximum possible FPS. And so it's not quite as smooth looking as what you get with an Oculus, but it's really, really close. And I didn't get any motion sickness, and it was very, very clear. And it didn't really fiddle around with me, it stayed in the sweet spot where I could see clearly the center of the screen, the center like 80% stayed perfectly clear. Of course the edges is a little bit blurry. It's kind of like happens in real life vision anyway. It's kind of like the edges of your vision are like not really the focus point. You're not really in clear vision anyway, so it doesn't really bother you that much. Kind of just gotta get used to it. So this is the Pimax in 8K now. This is a 4K screen, down res to 1440p. So basically you have less of a screen door effect on this model, at least that's my understanding. Now it's gonna be rendering at the same exact resolution, but from my understanding is this, in some ways the 5K Plus is a little bit better, in some ways this is better. I can't wait to try and see which one I actually like more. All right, so I can tell already with the 8K, there's just like a little bit of like aliasing or like almost like chroma aberration going on. It's very high res, but I gotta say the 5K Plus is immediately apparently a little bit clearer. So I gotta say this one almost feels more responsive, but maybe that's just my initial first impression. Everything seems just a hair smoother on the 8K. Like it seems like everything's playing at a higher frame rate. So this is the eye tracking module for the Pimax. These little sensors right here are what actually track your eyes. It's like sometimes it doesn't quite like pick up when I'm looking at one of them. Like I switched to one. It's almost like it's maybe outside of the little field of view of where it's at, but overall it's like hitting about 80–90% of them. Yeah, I think it's just because I need to move my whole eyeball, it's like deliberately like look over at it. Alright, so there you have it. I really like the Pimax 5K Plus better. Now the 8K just had a little bit of like, I don't know, it's like a haziness. It's like right around the edges of the text there was just this little bit of like fuzziness or haziness. I don't know the technical term for it, but the 5K Plus did not exhibit any of those things, and it was just perfectly clear. The downside with the 5K Plus is that you can see just a tiny bit of screen door effect where you have no screen door effect on the 8K, but the image clarity is still better on the 5K Plus. So if you're looking to get one of these, get the 5K Plus. I think it's a little bit cheaper, and it's also a better overall headset in my opinion. Overall, I really like the headset. The main weakness I think is that when you take it off and put it on, you're probably gonna have to wipe it down pretty often. I think you're gonna end up getting a lot of the oils from like the edge of your forehead on those big old lenses, so they get right up close to your face. But at the same time, in order to get that wide field of view, you really have to get up close and personal. So overall, I really like the Pimax 5K Plus, and I can totally recommend it, but I'll have a full review on it coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the notification bell. We'll see you guys in the next one. Brandon out.